Welcome to All Pro Football Data. My name is Jim Coburn, and today's episode we're talking about the 2024 NFL Outlook on Ladd McConkey. That's right, Los Angeles Chargers rookie. We'll look at his pre-draft profile, team analysis, schedule analysis, and his week-by-week matchups to see what obstacles and opportunities await him in 2024. So here's the setup. Ladd McConkey was drafted by the Chargers at pick 34 in this year's draft. The typical expectation, approximate value-wise, of a wide receiver selected at pick 34 is 91.51 out of 100, meaning most wide receivers selected at that spot typically are 91% better than the vast majority of NFL players. Also, McConkey's EAV, or expected approximate value score, is 75.36 out of 100, which is above average, but doesn't quite hit near the 91.51 area that you kind of want to see with this type of player. So that's not an ideal data score, but let's get into why his score was so low. So taking a look at his offensive market share data, looking at his data here, 36th percentile in terms of his receiving market share, 41 percentile in terms of total offensive market share, and then touchdown market share was 44 percentile. So not the best numbers there in terms of his overall data. Then when you get to efficiency scores, efficiency wise wasn't the best either. In terms of yards per reception, he was 50 percentile. But he did have a good TD percentage. So he was 80 percentile in terms of his touchdown percentage. So those are good numbers there. But his efficiency was a little uneven. So again, his overall production wasn't the best. It was below average. And then you look at his efficiency scores, which weren't the best either. Then we look at athleticism traits. Good athleticism, not great. 39 percentile in terms of explosive lower body strength, 70 percentile in terms of speed for his size, and 74 percentile in terms of flexibility for his size, which deals with his ability to stop and start ability is the biggest thing that number measures. Adjusted production. Taking a look at adjusted production, numbers here. Age is a little, yeah. MSA rating is yeah, and pass rating is yeah. Again, not terrible though. He's above the starter averages. He's close to the Pro Bowl averages, but it's not exactly everything that you want him to be in terms of his overall data. Now, what makes McConkey a riskier option compared to the current wide receiver class is that the overall EAV, or data profile, Ladd McConkey was 75.36 out of 100. Since 1969, wide receivers with a 70 to 80 data score taken in the 34 to 50 pick range of the NFL draft are as follows: Ken Burrow, Mark Bradley, Chad Johnson, Ron Brown, Jimmy Smith, Eddie Royal, Christian Watson, Ernest Givens, Emmett Edwards, Dexter McCluster, Wesley Carroll, Kevin Lee, Devin Smith, Reggie Brown, Brian Still, Donnie Avery, Brian Quick, and Danny Peebles. That's a fairly underwhelming list with a couple of positives sprinkled in there. Again, I'm not going to say Ladd McConkey doesn't have any shot of becoming a good wide receiver, but it shows you the risk associated. You have a lot of hits and a lot of misses here. So that's kind of what that data kind of shows you. But with that list and additional wide receiver information, we can formulate a year one potential based on the current roster. So here's a team analysis for 2023 for the Chargers. The Chargers ended 2023 with a below average offense. They ranked 44.95 out of 100 in terms of OSRS. And Justin Herbert had a QBR percentile score of 64.15 out of 100. Herbert has averaged, though, a 74.61 QBR since 2020. However, he should be considered by many to be a top 5 quarterback. So he's going to have a good quarterback. Ladd McConkey, at the very least, is going to have a very efficient quarterback. But is that going to matter to his success? Well, let's take a look at the parameters here. So these were all the wide receivers that I just mentioned that were picked between pick 33 to 50. Taking a look at their EAV, their year one market share, year two, year three, and the quarterbacks that they had. So that'll show you like if they had a good quarterback, a bad quarterback in year one, year two, and year three. It also shows you the offenses, the NFL offenses that they were in, good offense, bad offense, etc. And based on the data that I just showed you, when you take a look at the correlation coefficient between a wide receiver and the QBR, there is no correlation. So again, typically when you're looking for a correlation, in terms of correlation coefficients, you're looking for anything that's about .3 to .4 is decent. .5, .6 is good, and then anything above .6, .7, .8 is a really solid correlation. Meaning, if one thing happens and another thing happens, if one thing happens and another thing happens, it shows you there's a really strong relationship between that. And unfortunately, in terms of wide receiver performance, how good their quarterback is doesn't really matter. So again, regardless of the fact that he's going to have a good quarterback in Justin Herbert to throw him the football, it's not really going to matter much to his overall assessment as a player. Now, when you get to the other data, so this looks at the average uh, market share production. So based on the wide receivers that I just showed you, they averaged about 60 percentile in terms of year one, 63 percentile in terms of year two, and then 60 percentile in terms of year three. So not the best production wise for the group of wide receivers that he was in. So all this means realistically is that McConkey might need a quick breakout to know the potential future impact. So if Ladd McConkey has like a 60 percentile rookie season, I'm going to doubt his potential long term. I just am, especially if he doesn't really improve much in year two, year three. So that's the biggest thing with McConkey is that I think there are some positives here with him, but looking at it from context of what this says, he's not the best rookie wide receiver you could possibly have. This is what I'm trying to say. Now, when you get to the actual offensive roster analysis, Ladd McConkey is actually doing pretty well for himself. Not a lot of great competition here. Quentin Johnston is there, who hasn't really broken out yet. Then, of course, you got Joshua Palmer. And, then, of course, Ladd McConkey's there. The tight end, of course, is Will Disley. So, not a lot of competition here. That's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, but it does give you the ability to go, okay, McConkey can compete. He can compete with these other players in terms of that. And also, he's going to be a slot role, which is by far the slot position is a much easier role compared to other positions because of the variety of routes that you can run and the variety of ways that you can get open. So essentially, you don't have to battle the sideline with a slot receiver. You could work the left side of the field, the right side of the field, the middle side of the field. The world is your oyster when you're a slot receiver. So that's going to be another thing I think is really going to help him out in terms of his production, in terms of his data. But that's something to keep track of, obviously. Then, of course, we get to the schedule analysis. So the schedule analysis takes a look at the overall data of the Chargers, the defense of the Chargers, and then it takes a look at the competition they're going to be facing. So the first set is the Chargers offense and defensive rankings based on their overall data compared to the rest of the NFL league. And then the second part shows you the opponents that they're going to be facing in terms of their offensive ranking and defensive ranking. And then it shows you the offensive advantage, which is the offense slash defense. Defense slash offense is what the defensive advantage, and then the differential is the overall differential in terms of their overall data compared to this other team. Do they have an advantage from a statistical production, athleticism standpoint, and NFL production standpoint? And taking a look at this schedule, there are some positive matchups here. So the Raiders is a good matchup. The Broncos is a solid matchup. They can play them twice a year. Tennessee, solid matchup. Cincinnati, solid. Atlanta, solid. And then that's about it. So not the best matchups ever for this offense, but I do think there are going to be some opportunities here for them to really shine. So that's something to kind of keep track of in terms of projecting him in year one is what competition he's going to face. And for the most part, I would say it's a pretty even mix. I would say this is about an average schedule in terms of the offensive defensive performances here. Starting with the week by week analysis. So as I always do in these videos, I take a look at what they're going to be facing week to week to kind of get an idea, kind of get your head around, what his impact could be. So taking a look at the Raiders here, the Raiders have a really solid front four. Always have for a long time. They've always had a pretty solid front four. But the secondary can be got. So when you take a look at the secondary here, they got guys like Jack Jones, Jacorian Bennett, Nate Hobbs, Marcus Epps. Those guys are not guys I would really be afraid of in terms of from a data perspective. When you look at their data grades, you look at their actual NFL performances, those guys are not a threat. Again, competitive, yes, but I think this does show you the ability that that Ladd McConkey has to take advantage of this matchup. So this is, I think the Raiders are going to be a good matchup for McConkey. Then when you get to the Carolina Panthers, their overall defense, again, front four, really great. But then when you get to the secondary, there are a lot of mismatches here. You know, guys like Dane Jackson, J.C. Horn, Troy Hill. Those are players I think that Ladd McConkey definitely can take advantage of. And I think we'll see some good things here. Then, of course, you get the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is going to be the first really, I don't say terrible matchup, but it's going to be an interesting game because I think Darius Rush, who's the starting nickel, maybe not right now, but definitely has the potential to be when it's all said and done. Doesn't have the best data, so this could be an area where Ladd McConkey might actually do well because of the matchups that present him with him. So this is going to be something that's going to be interesting to watch here. But I think because of who McConkey is, he could take advantage of this matchup and do well in this matchup. Then, of course, we got the Kansas City Chiefs. Their knuckle corner and Trent McDuffie is ridiculously good. So this might be the first game where McConkey might struggle a little bit. Then he gets to the Denver Broncos. Patrick Surtain is an amazing cornerback, probably one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. And then he's surrounded by a bunch of guys in the secondary. So this is not really going to be a situation unless Patrick Surtain gets lined up against Ladd McConkey. I don't really see Ladd McConkey struggling to eat against this defense. So that's going to be a positive here. Then you go to the Arizona Cardinals. Their secondary is a little hit or miss as well compared to the other secondaries I just saw. Some advantages are definitely here, but they have a solid safety in Buda Baker, and of course Jalen Thompson are also solid as well. So this is another matchup that I think is a little hit or miss, but McConkey could do well. Then you get to the New Orleans Saints. Really great defense across the board for them in the secondary as well. So this might be a bit of a struggle bus game for McConkey. So I wouldn't expect a ton in this particular matchup because of how great the New Orleans defense is. And then, of course, you got the Cleveland Browns. Secondary is really solid across the board. Nothing amazing about the secondary. What really makes the Browns really great is they're a great defense all around. So, you know, every level to the defense you can find star players, but they definitely are not like a complete shutdown type of defense in terms of the overall players that they have. And I think that's something that Ladd McConkey could do well against them. Then, of course, you get the Tennessee Titans. They invested a lot in their secondary this year. And Roger McCreary is a really great secondary player at nickel. And I think this could be a really not so great game for McConkey. So this is another matchup where I think he gets beat. He gets got this particular matchup. Then we get to the Cincinnati Bengals. Their secondary as well is a little hit or miss when you look at the secondary players for them. So I would not be surprised if McConkey does well against them. Baltimore Ravens. The nickel cornerback for them right now is Ardarius Washington. That is a matchup that I think Ladd McConkey can eat on all day. So that's another game where I think Ladd McConkey has some potential to do well. And then, of course, you got the Atlanta Falcons. That their nickel cornerback is Mike Hughes. Really average efficiency as a cornerback, and data-wise is not the best either. So definitely a matchup that I think Ladd McConkey can do well in. And I think the Falcons will be kind of a shootout type of game. So I think McConkey could benefit from that as well. Then, of course, you get the Kansas City Chiefs again. Again, Trent McDuffie is an amazing nickel cornerback. I think could definitely give McConkey some trouble. Then you get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tyke Smith is a rookie, so we'll see how he holds up at this point in the season. But he could be good, could be bad. It just depends. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneer secondary is solid all around, so I'll be interested to see what happens there with them. Then you get to the Denver Broncos. In terms of them again, as I stated before, matchups here are do favor McConkey. Then of course you get to the Patriots in terms of them, and in terms of their secondary, hit or miss there as well. Then they play the Raiders again in Week 18, and again the front four is really great for the Raiders, but the back end is not so scary for them. So this is gonna be a matchup that I think can be taken advantage of. So overall, Ladd McConkey's outlook. I think Ladd McConkey has a lot of hype in the fantasy community, at least based on my sense of it following it. Due to the Senior Bowl, his athletic performance at the combine, where he was drafted, being drafted pick 34. In the short term, I think McConkey might have early success in his career. But in the long term, I don't know how McConkey's really going to project, more in terms of his long-term success. So he projects more as a backup to secondary receiver. He really does. So again, if he becomes a star receiver, then I'll eat these words. But based on his overall data and his overall impact, he doesn't quite look like a star player. He looks like a role player. So he's going to be somebody I think can have success, but I don't think he's going to have as much fantasy success as a lot of people expect him to be, especially for where he was drafted at pick 34. The Chargers offense projects to be more run heavy as well in 2024. So this is a recipe that honestly I'd rather avoid. So I know I've done a couple videos in the past on the Chargers. You can check them out. In terms of Los Angeles Chargers running back room, and also taking a look at Quentin Johnston as well. I kind of mentioned some of this, but Jim Harbaugh is a guy who likes to run the football. They brought in offensive coordinators there that historically have ran the football more than anything else. So I do understand they want to have a dynamic and balanced offense, but this is not the situation that I think he's going to excel in. So overall, I like the outlook. It's solid for McConkey. I think if you're gonna decide to draft him, I would kind of wait a little bit. So again, I wouldn't want to overpay for him. I think the overall upside for him might be like a wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 4. If you are in those types of leagues, that start 3 wide receivers or have a flex, 3 wide receivers in a flex, McConkey would kind of fit well in terms of that particular role. But if you expect McConkey to be like a wide receiver 2, if you expect him to be like a star, ridiculous, light the NFL on fire, have a Puka Nacua type of impact in his rookie season, I would say you are sorely mistaken. So we'll see what happens. But again, solid player. Really like the hype with him. You love to see stories like this of guys who go to Georgia, don't really do much of anything, and then end up getting drafted really high and going to a team and possibly becoming good players. So we'll see what happens. But overall outlook, he's okay. He's okay. That's the best I can say. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Jim Coburn. You can check out the work at Draft Coburn. Um, uh, Not Draft Coburn. Why I keep saying that? At Jim Metrics on Twitter. You can also check out patreon.com/jcoburn to check out some other work that I've done. And I know it's been a bit of a hiatus. I had a lot of personal stuff that came up recently. Had to travel a little bit, but I'm back on the grind. I'm going to start to get some more videos out and do some NFL preview. So I think for August especially, you'll start to see some more content like that gearing towards the beginning of the season. And then I'll kind of see what else I need to do. But let me know in the comment section below any videos that you want me to do before the season starts. Let me know. If there's any other things you want to see, let me know as well in the comment section below. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.